My daughter yelled at me in front of the whole family during Christmas dinner. "Mom, either you pay your share of the rent like any responsible adult, or you'll have to look for another place to live." What Chloe didn't know was that the luxurious apartment where she lived, the imported SUV she showed off on social media, and even the unlimited credit card she loved using so much, were all mine. Absolutely everything. But before we continue, make sure you are already subscribed to the channel and write in the comments what part of the United States you are watching us from. We love knowing how far our stories are reaching. My name is Margaret Sterling. I am 58 years old, and for a long time, I believed that keeping silent about my achievements was the best way to love my only daughter. Today I know I was completely wrong. Love that does not teach, that does not correct, that only facilitates without showing the price of things, is not true love. It is a trap disguised as generosity. The night of December 24th began exactly as I imagined it would. Chaotic, loud, and full of excess. Chloe had insisted on hosting Christmas dinner at her apartment, or rather, at the apartment she believed was hers. I spent the entire day in the kitchen preparing everything: the glazed ham, the roast turkey, the stuffing, and her favorite pecan pie. It was almost 6 in the evening when I finished, with my back aching and my hands swollen. The living room was packed. Chloe had invited 16 people, influencer friends, her entrepreneur boyfriend, and distant cousins who only appeared when there was expensive champagne involved. Everyone was dressed in designer clothes, wearing watches that cost the annual salary of a regular person, talking about international trips and investments as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I circulated among them, serving drinks, picking up dirty plates, and refilling the appetizer trays. My apron was stained with gravy, my graying hair pulled back in a simple bun that was already coming undone. No one thanked me. No one even looked at me. I was just Chloe's mother, the widow living off the charity of her successful daughter. Chloe was seated at the head of the table, radiant in her red silk dress that cost almost $1,000. She laughed out loud, gesturing animatedly, while telling everyone about the latest project her digital marketing agency had landed. "We closed a $5 million contract with a multinational corporation," she announced, raising her glass of rosé champagne. "My team is exceptional. We work hard, but the results are worth every second of dedication." Her boyfriend, Brad, draped his arm around her shoulders with that smug smile of someone who has never had to fight for anything in his life. "That is why we can maintain this lifestyle," he said, making a gesture that encompassed the entire apartment. "Hard work, focus, determination. There is no secret." I felt something tighten in my chest, but I continued clearing the empty plates. No one mentioned that her apartment was a 2,000-square-foot penthouse duplex on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. No one asked how a 32-year-old professional, with only 6 years in her career, managed to pay for a property valued at $4 million. "The secret is not depending on anyone," Chloe continued, looking directly at me with that air of superiority that I myself, unintentionally, had helped create. "Building everything with your own hands, being truly independent." My cousin Susan, sitting to the left, cleared her throat. "It is true, Chloe. These days it is getting harder and harder to achieve that independence. Rents are absurd. Bills keep going up." "Exactly," Chloe interrupted, animated. "That is exactly why I always say every person has to fend for themselves. Work, produce, contribute. No one can just freeload, living at the expense of others." The silence that followed was so thick I could hear the central air conditioning humming. Some people lowered their eyes to their plates. Others pretended to check their cell phones, but no one said anything. No one pointed out the cruelty of those words directed straight at me, who was standing there serving the dinner I had prepared myself. I was returning from the kitchen with the dessert platter when I heard Chloe raise her voice. She had drunk 3 glasses of champagne and was in that state of false bravery that alcohol provides. "Mom," she called out, and the whole table went silent. Since we are talking about responsibilities and contributions, I think this is a good moment to have that conversation I have been postponing. My heart raced. I placed the platter on the table and turned to face her. "Conversation about what, Chloe?" "About you living here," she said, as if she were discussing the weather. "Look, I understand that after Dad died it was hard for you, but 5 years have passed. You need to understand that this apartment is mine. The expenses are mine. And it is not fair for you to stay here without contributing anything. I felt as if the floor had disappeared beneath my feet. Chloe, I cook all the food. I clean the house. I take care of everything while you work. That does not pay the bills. Mom, she cut me off, with a coldness I did not know where she had gotten. The maintenance fees here are $1,500 a month. The electric bill is over $300. Internet, water, gas, property taxes. Do you have any idea how much it costs to maintain this standard of living? Brad nodded beside her, as if supporting a business proposal. Chloe is right. Nowadays, every adult needs to be financially responsible for their own life. I looked around the table, searching for some sign of discomfort, some voice that would rise in my defense. My cousin Susan avoided my gaze. My brother Robert coughed and focused on his plate. Chloe's influencer friends exchanged complicit glances, as if they were watching an interesting reality show. So, what are you telling me? I asked, feeling my voice tremble. Chloe sighed, as if I were a stubborn child refusing to understand something obvious. I am saying that either you start paying your share about $800 a month would be fair, or you will have to look for a place that fits your budget. Your Social Security is enough to rent a studio in a cheaper neighborhood, maybe out in Queens or Jersey. Chloe, my brother Robert finally reacted. She is your mother. So what? She replied. Does being a mother give her the right to live for free forever? She has her pension. She has the means to support herself. I am not being cruel, Robert. I am being realistic. I am teaching independence. Those words, teaching independence, echoed in my mind like a cruel joke. Me, who had built a silent empire. Me, who had taught her everything about business without her knowing. Me, who had facilitated every step of her life so she would feel capable and strong. I took a deep breath, and with a calmness that surprised me, I answered, "You are right, Chloe. It is time for all of us to be realistic about our responsibilities." I turned around and walked toward my bedroom. Behind me, I heard uncomfortable murmurs, someone trying to change the subject, the sound of silverware against plates. I closed the door and sat on the bed, looking at the small room I had occupied for 5 years. The smallest room in the apartment, with no view, with an old closet and a twin bed. From the nightstand, I took out a worn leather folder. Inside were documents Chloe had never seen, papers that told a completely different story from the one she believed to be true. I opened the folder slowly, like someone opening a chest of memories that had been closed for too long. The first document was the deed to the apartment. Owner, Margaret Sterling. Date of acquisition, March of 2018. Value at the time, $3,500,000, paid in cash. Right underneath, the occupancy agreement I had signed with Chloe 5 years ago, when she finished college and got her first job. Grant of free use of property, the document read. Indefinite term, revocable at any time by the owner. My eyes filled with tears, but they were not tears of sadness. It was anger mixed with disappointment, shame at myself for having allowed us to reach this point. I continued flipping through the papers. Receipt of monthly bank transfer to Chloe's account, $4,000. Reason, family support. I deposited that amount religiously on the 5th of every month, and she spent it without blinking, believing it was the fruit of her work alone. Authorization for use of the 2022 BMW X3. License plate ending in 7G4. Owner, Margaret Sterling. Temporarily granted to Chloe Sterling. Platinum additional credit card. Main account, in the name of Margaret Sterling. Limit, $20,000. Every paper was proof of what I had built and what, in my maternal naivety, I had hidden from my own daughter. I closed my eyes and allowed myself to go back in time, to understand how I had gotten there. I met Arthur, my late husband, when I was 22. He was a salesman at a local hardware store. I worked as a secretary in a small office. We got married 6 months later, with that beautiful rush of youth, believing that love was enough to pay the bills. Chloe was born 2 years later, and with her came financial difficulties. We lived in a tiny 2-bedroom apartment in a rough part of the Bronx. Arthur worked 12 hours a day, but his salary barely covered the basics. I did manicures for neighbors, sewed clothes to sell, anything I could do with Chloe on my lap or sleeping nearby. Those were extremely difficult years. I remember counting coins to buy diapers, watering down milk so it would last longer, looking at store windows knowing I could never go in. But there was something inside me, a flame that refused to go out. I did not want that life forever. When Chloe was 4, I started a night course in accounting. Arthur stayed with her, even though he was exhausted from work. I finished in 2 years, always at the top of my class. I got a job at a small import company, earning double what I received as a secretary. It was at that company that I learned about foreign trade, profit margins, negotiations. My boss, Mr. Henderson, was a strict but fair man. He noticed my hunger for knowledge and began teaching me not just accounting, but business strategy. "Margaret," he told me once, "you have a gift. You see opportunities where others see problems. Do not waste it." I did not waste it. In 1998, when Chloe was 7, I used all our savings, $5,000 that took us 6 years to save, and opened a small business consulting firm for local shops. I worked from 6 in the morning until midnight, slept 4 hours, and started over. Arthur supported me, but he was also afraid. "What if it goes wrong, Maggie? We are going to lose everything." But I was sure. It wasn't arrogance. It was necessity. I needed to give Chloe a better life. I needed to prove to myself that I was capable. The first year was terrible. We almost went bankrupt 3 times, but I insisted, adjusted, learned from every mistake. The second year, we started to grow. The third, we had 15 steady clients. The fourth, we bought our first house. Nothing fancy, but it was ours. Chloe grew up believing we were a regular middle-class family. She didn't know about the late nights I spent working, the risks I took, the nights I cried from exhaustion in the bathroom so no one would hear me. By 2005, when she was 14, my company had 60 employees. I had specialized in financial restructuring for distressed companies. My reputation was growing. The contracts were bigger and more lucrative. Arthur, my husband, kept working at the hardware store. He could have stopped, but he said he needed the routine, the contact with people. I think, deep down, he felt displaced by my success. We never discussed it openly, but I felt it. In 2009, I sold my company for $8 million. It was the hardest decision of my life, but I was exhausted. I wanted time with Chloe. I wanted to travel with Arthur. I wanted to finally breathe. I bought our first really nice apartment. I invested in real estate, stocks, mutual funds. The money worked for me now, but I kept everything discreet. I never bragged. I never wanted Chloe to grow up spoiled or dependent. When she got into college, I paid for everything. Tuition, books, even a used car for her to get around. But always saying it was a family effort, never revealing that the money represented less than 1% of the monthly interest my investments generated. Arthur died in 2019, suddenly. A brain aneurysm while watching TV on a Sunday afternoon. It was so fast he didn't even suffer, the doctor said. But I suffered. I lost my partner, my accomplice, the only one who knew the whole truth about my financial life. Chloe was 28 when it was just the two of us. She was starting her career, excited about the corporate world. That was when I made the worst decision of my life. I decided to make everything easy for her without her knowing. I bought the luxury penthouse and pretended it was hers. I transferred money monthly, making it look like company bonuses. I gave her the SUV, the credit card, every convenience, believing that way she would be happy and confident. But what I actually did was create a monster of ingratitude. Sitting there, holding those documents, I realized I had made the classic mistake of many mothers. I confused love with enabling. I wanted to spare Chloe all the struggles I went through, not understanding that it was exactly those struggles that forged me, that taught me the real value of every achievement. My cell phone vibrated. It was a text from Chloe. "Mom, you do not have to make a scene. Tomorrow we will talk calmly about the rent amount. Good night." I read that message 3 times. There was no apology, no trace of regret for humiliating me in front of 16 people. Only the certainty that she was right, that I was the one responsible for making a scene. I took a deep breath and typed a reply. "Do not worry. I will resolve my situation first thing tomorrow." I hit send and turned off the phone. I got up, opened the closet, and took down a suitcase from the top shelf, the same suitcase I used on my last trip with Arthur to Florida, 3 months before he died. I dusted it off and started folding my clothes. I didn't have many things there. Chloe always complained that my style was old lady, so I kept a minimal wardrobe. 3 blouses, 2 pairs of pants, a sweater, underwear, my comfortable shoes, everything fit in half a suitcase. I looked at myself in the closet mirror and saw my reflection. A 58-year-old woman, with hair more white than brown, wrinkles around her eyes that told the story of many worries, hands that had worked so hard and were still strong. How did I let it get to this point? I asked my reflection. How did I, who built companies, who negotiated with tough executives, who was always so strong in everything, become invisible in my own daughter's life? The answer was painfully simple. Because I allowed it. Because I thought a mother's love meant sacrificing everything, including my dignity. Because I confused humility with self-erasure. I finished packing the suitcase and picked up my cell phone again. I looked for a contact I hadn't called in months. Catherine Pierce, my trusted lawyer. It was almost 11 on Christmas night, but I knew she would answer. Catherine was a workaholic like me. "Margaret," she answered on the 3rd ring. "Is everything okay? Did something happen? Sorry to bother you on the holiday, Catherine, but I need you to prepare some documents for me by tomorrow without fail." "Of course. Tell me." "I want formal notices regarding the apartment on 5th Avenue, regarding the BMW registered in my name, and regarding the cancellation of Chloe's additional credit card. Everything in her name." There was a silence on the other end. "Margaret, are you sure? She is your daughter." "Exactly for that reason," I replied, feeling a firmness I hadn't experienced in years. "Because she is my daughter, and because I truly love her, I need to do this." I turned her into someone I no longer recognize. "It is time to correct my mistake," Catherine sighed. "I understand. I will prepare everything. The legal documents will be ready tomorrow at 10 in the morning. But, Margaret, be prepared. This is going to hurt. Her and you, I know. But true love sometimes needs to hurt to heal." I hung up and looked around the small room for the last time. That tiny space had been my comfortable prison for 5 years. I had settled for being small, invisible, convenient. Never again. Outside, I could still hear laughter from the living room. The party was continuing. Chloe had probably already forgotten our conversation, diluted in more glasses of champagne and selfies for Instagram. She had no idea of the tsunami that was about to hit her life, perfectly built on lies that I myself had sustained. I took my suitcase and my purse. Inside the purse were my wallet, personal documents, and the keys to my true apartment, a 1,200-square-foot loft in Brooklyn Heights that I had bought 2 years ago as an investment and kept empty, waiting for the right moment. That moment had arrived. I opened the bedroom door and walked down the hallway. The wheels of the suitcase made a rumbling noise that cut through the music and conversations like a siren. 16 pairs of eyes turned toward me. Chloe stood up from her chair, her face flushed from wine. "Mom, what are you doing? Where are you going with that suitcase?" "Following your advice, dear," I replied with a calm I felt deep in my soul. "I am going to look for a place that fits my budget, but I did not mean right now. I did not mean for you to leave today, on Christmas. I know. You wanted me to stay here, ashamed, feeling like a burden, an unwanted guest. But you know what, Chloe? I deserve more than that. I always did." "Brad, the boyfriend," interjected with that condescending smile. "Mrs. Sterling, I think you are exaggerating. Chloe just wanted to have an adult conversation about responsibilities." "Responsibilities," I repeated, savoring the word. "You are right, Brad. Responsibilities. That is exactly what I need to talk to you two about." I looked directly at Chloe. "But not now. Tomorrow, my lawyer is going to contact you. There are some things you need to know about this apartment, about the SUV, about everything." "What lawyer? What are you talking about?" Chloe seemed genuinely confused. "You will find out," I replied. "Merry Christmas, my daughter. Enjoy your party." I turned around and walked toward the front door. My brother Robert stood up. "Maggie, wait. Let me drive you wherever you are going." "It is not necessary, Robert. I already called a car." "But—" "I am fine," I interrupted, touching his arm. For the first time in a long time, I am really fine. The Uber was waiting for me in front of the building. A silver sedan, clean, with a middle-aged driver who greeted me politely. "Good evening, Margaret, that is me." He put my suitcase in the trunk and opened the back door. I got in and sank into the seat, feeling a deep exhaustion take over every muscle in my body. It wasn't just the physical tiredness of having prepared dinner for 16 people. It was the accumulated tiredness of 5 years, living a lie, of making myself small so my daughter would feel big. "Brooklyn Heights, please," I informed the driver. As the car glided through the illuminated streets of New York, I watched the Christmas decorations still lit up in the windows. Families on the sidewalks, children running with new toys, couples holding hands. It was Christmas, a time for family unity, and I was running away from my own home, or rather, from the home my daughter believed was hers. My cell phone vibrated insistently. 5 missed calls from Chloe, 3 text messages. "Mom, come back right now. You are being ridiculous. What is this about a lawyer?" I didn't answer. Instead, I opened my banking app and checked the numbers I knew by heart. Checking account, $500,000. Investment account, $8 million. Real estate, 3 apartments besides the one Chloe occupied, an estimated value of $7 million. Stocks and funds, another $4 million. In total, my net worth hovered around $20 million. $20 million that I had built with intelligence, hard work, and sacrifice. $20 million that my daughter had absolutely no idea existed. I arrived at the building in Brooklyn Heights at 11:40 p.m. It was a modern 12-story building with a 24-hour doorman and discreet security. The doorman, Mr. Evans, greeted me with surprise. "Mrs. Sterling, what a surprise to see you here at this hour. And on Christmas." "Good evening, Mr. Evans. I will be staying here for a while. Can you authorize my permanent entry?" Of course. Let me help you with the suitcase." We went up to the 8th floor in a quiet, modern elevator. My apartment was at the end of the hall. I opened the door and turned on the lights. It was completely different from Chloe's apartment. While hers was all white, minimalist, Instagrammable, mine had personality, walls in warm earth tones, artwork by local artists I had collected over the years, a huge library occupying an entire wall of the living room, comfortable furniture that invited you to sit and stay. I left the suitcase near the door and walked through the living room, touching each object like someone reuniting with old friends. This was my true space, the place where I could be Margaret Sterling completely, without needing to pretend to be just Chloe's mother. I sat in the Italian leather armchair and for the first time that night allowed the tears to fall. They were not tears of self-pity, but of mourning. Mourning for the relationship I had idealized with my daughter and that never truly existed. Mourning for the strong woman I had been and who somehow had gotten lost along the way. My phone rang. "Catherine, my lawyer." "Margaret, I just received your instructions via email. I am working on the documents now, but I need to ask you, are you absolutely sure? Once we start this process, there is no going back." "I am totally sure," I replied, wiping my tears. "Catherine, I spent the last 5 years making everything easy for Chloe without her knowing. I gave her a $4 million apartment pretending she had earned it herself. I pay $4,000 a month disguised as company bonuses. I gave her an $80,000 SUV. I gave her a credit card with practically no limit. And you know what she learned from all this? What? That she deserves everything without needing to fight for anything. That she can treat people, including her own mother, as if they were disposable. And the fault for that isn't hers, Catherine. It is mine. I created this monster of entitlement." Catherine was silent for a moment. "You are a very brave woman, Margaret, and you are doing the right thing, even if it is painful." "True love sometimes needs to be cruel, to be honest," I replied. "Will the documents be ready tomorrow at 10? "They will be. And, Margaret, Merry Christmas. I know it does not feel like it, but you are giving yourself a great gift today." "What gift?" "Your dignity back." I hung up and sat there in the silence of my apartment. Outside, I could still hear fireworks from private parties. The city didn't sleep, not even on Christmas, and I wouldn't sleep that night either. I got up and went to the library. I took down an old photo album, one of those with vellum paper between the photographs. I sat down again and began to flip through it. Chloe as a baby, in my thin, tired arms. Chloe as a child, on her 6th birthday, with a simple cake but made with so much love. Chloe as a teenager, on her high school graduation day, beautiful and full of dreams. In none of those photos did she have that hardness in her eyes she carried now. In none of those photos did I see the woman who humiliated me in front of 16 people, demanding that I pay rent in my own house. What had happened? Where had I gone wrong? The answer came crystal clear. I had gone wrong by protecting her too much from consequences, by smoothing her path too much, by hiding the truth about the price of achievements. I had transformed my love into a bubble of lies that prevented her from truly growing. And now, on my loneliest Christmas day in 58 years of life, I finally had the courage to burst that bubble. I woke up at 6 in the morning on December 25th, with my body aching from having slept only 3 hours. But my mind was clear, focused, ready. I made strong coffee, took a long shower, and chose an appropriate outfit: black dress pants, a navy blue blouse, a structured blazer. When I looked in the mirror, I saw the woman I really was: a businesswoman, an investor, a woman who built a silent empire. At 8 o'clock sharp, I called my financial consultant, Diane. She answered on the first ring, as always. "Margaret, good morning. Merry Christmas." "Merry Christmas, Diane. Sorry to interrupt your holiday, but I need you to prepare a full report of my investments and assets. Everything detailed, with receipts." "What for, if I may ask?" "I am going to need to present it to my daughter. She needs to know some truths." There was a pause. Diane had known me for 15 years and knew the whole situation with Chloe. "Ah, Margaret, has the time finally come?" "It has. I am going to prepare everything and email it to you before 10. Do you want me to include the monthly transfers you make to her account?" "All of them. I want it to be crystal clear where every cent comes from." At 9:45, I was sitting in Catherine Pierce's office, on the 30th floor of a commercial building in Midtown. Through the window, New York City stretched out in all directions. My city, which I had conquered brick by brick, contract by contract. Catherine, an elegant 52-year-old woman, greeted me with a tight hug. "You did not sleep at all, did you?" 3 hours. "Strong coffee?" "Please." She poured 2 cups of aromatic coffee and opened a black folder on the table. "Here is everything. 3 main documents." I took the first one. Notice of termination of tenancy. Property, 5th Avenue, number 2847. The owner, Margaret Sterling, notifies the occupant, Chloe Sterling, regarding the termination of the occupancy agreement, granting a period of 30 days for the voluntary vacation of the property. The second document. Notice of revocation of vehicle authorization. The owner, Margaret Sterling, communicates the immediate revocation of the temporary authorization for the use of the BMW X3 SUV, license plate DJK 7G44, requesting its return within a maximum period of 48 hours. The third was simpler: request for cancellation of additional credit card in the name of Chloe Sterling, linked to the main account of Margaret Sterling. Immediate effect. "How do you want to handle the delivery?" Catherine asked. "Personally. This afternoon. I want to see her face when she receives it." "Margaret." Catherine hesitated. "You are one of the strongest women I know, but this is going to be very hard. Guard your heart." "My heart has been guarded for 5 years, I replied. 5 years minimizing myself, nullifying myself, pretending I needed her when in reality she is the one who always depended on me. Enough enabling, Catherine. True love doesn't make things easy. It educates. I left the office at 11 o'clock with the documents in hand and the financial report Diane had sent. It was 47 pages detailing my net worth, my old companies, and my current investments. And, most importantly, the monthly transfers I had been making to Chloe for 5 years. $4,000 a month for 60 months, $240,000 that she spent believing it was her own merit. I decided to have lunch before going. I needed energy for the confrontation that was coming. I chose a quiet little restaurant in Chelsea. I ordered a mushroom risotto and a glass of white wine. I ate slowly, savoring every bite, giving myself time to process the magnitude of what I was about to do. My cell phone wouldn't stop vibrating. Chloe had called 23 times. Brad, the boyfriend, had sent 10 messages. My cousin Susan called me too, probably curious about what had happened after I left. I ignored everyone. They would have answers soon. At 2:30, I called an Uber to Chloe's apartment. My heart was beating fast, but my hands were steady. During the entire ride, I mentally reviewed the points I needed to address, the truths I needed to reveal. The doorman of the building, Mr. Henry, greeted me with that usual smile. He never knew I was the real owner of the apartment. To him, I was just the mother who lives with Chloe. Mrs. Sterling, your daughter is looking for you like crazy. She called down here 4 times today asking if I had seen you. I know, Mr. Henry. I am coming to resolve that now. I went up in the elevator, holding the folder with the documents tightly. When the doors opened on the 15th floor, I took 3 deep breaths. Then I walked to the door and rang the bell. Chloe opened it almost immediately, still in pajamas, with a swollen face like someone who had cried or drunk too much. Probably both. Mom! Thank God! Where were you? I called 1,000,000 times. You had me worried. Worried? I repeated, with an icy calm. How interesting. Yesterday you did not seem worried when you humiliated me in front of 16 people. I did not humiliate you. Can I come in? Or do I need to pay a visitor's fee? She turned red. Don't start, Mom. I walked in without waiting for an invitation. The living room was a mess. Empty champagne bottles, dirty plates, leftover food. Chloe noticed my gaze. The cleaning lady only comes on Monday. Of course. After all, princesses do not clean up their own mess, right? Why are you being so aggressive? I sat in the armchair, my armchair, bought with my money, in my apartment that she believed was hers, and placed the folder on the coffee table. Sit down, Chloe. We need to talk. Chloe sat in the chair opposite me, crossing her arms defensively. She still had that posture of someone who is right, someone who has been wronged by her dramatic mother. That made me even more determined. First, I began, opening the folder. I want you to read this document. I handed her the notice of termination of tenancy. Chloe took the paper, her eyes scanning the lines quickly. I watched the confusion transform into shock, and then into panic. What is this? Owner Margaret Sterling? I don't understand. It is very simple, Chloe. This apartment was never yours. It is mine. It always has been. I bought it in March of 2018 for $3.5 million, paid in cash, and allowed you to live here through an occupancy agreement, a free loan. The paper trembled in her hands. No, you are lying. This apartment is mine. I pay the bills. You pay the bills with what money, Chloe? I interrupted, picking up the second document. With this, maybe? I showed the statement of bank transfers. $4,000 that I deposit into your account every month for 5 years. $240,000 in total. She looked at the numbers as if they were written in an alien language. But those are my company bonuses. I work. You work? Yes. And you earn well. About $3,000 a month. But that does not pay even half of your expenses, does it? So I supplemented. I always supplemented it. But I made you believe it all came from your own effort. Chloe stood up, throwing the papers on the table. Why would you do that? Why would you lie to me about everything? Because I wanted to protect you, I replied, feeling my voice harden. Because I went through so many hardships when I was young that I wanted to spare you that. Because I, in my motherly ignorance, thought that making the path easy for you would be showing love, and it was. You loved me. I loved you wrongly, Chloe. I gave you everything without teaching you the value of anything. I created a person who believes she deserves luxuries she never truly earned. I created someone who treats her own mother like a burden, like an unwanted guest, in her own mother's apartment. She went pale. I did not know. Oh, and does that make it better? Does the fact that you did not know this apartment is mine change anything about the cruel way you spoke to me yesterday? About how you humiliated me in front of everyone? Chloe opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. Tears began to run down her face. Mom, and there is more, I continued relentlessly. I needed to go all the way. The BMW you drive is also mine. It is registered in my name. I only allowed you to use it, no. And the credit card you love to use to buy $2,000 handbags and expensive dinners? It is an additional card on my main account, with a $20,000 limit that I pay off every month. I showed her the last 3 statements. Chloe slumped into the chair, holding the papers with shaking hands. I watched her eyes scan the lines. French restaurant, $900. Designer store, $3,400. Spa, $700. Home decor, $4,000. $9,000 last month, I pointed out. Just on the credit card, aside from the $4,000 I deposit directly, $13,000 a month. That is over $150,000 a year of a life you thought was sustained by your own work. My God, she whispered. My God, Mom. I didn't know. You did not know, because I did not tell you. And I did not tell you, because I wanted you to feel strong, independent, capable. But all I managed to do was create an arrogant woman who does not know the real price of anything. Chloe was crying now, tears falling onto the bank statements, blurring the numbers. What are you going to do? I took a deep breath. This was the hardest part. I already did. The credit card was canceled last night, at 11:47 p.m. to be exact. Any attempt to use it will be declined. Mom, no. The SUV needs to be returned in 48 hours. It is in the notice. If you do not return it voluntarily, I will call a tow truck to pick it up. But I need the SUV for work. You can buy a car with your real salary. A sedan, a compact, something that fits your true budget. And the apartment? She asked, her voice weak. You have 30 days to vacate. It is the legal time frame. Use that time to find a place you can actually afford with what you actually earn. Chloe stood up, swaying slightly. Are you kicking me out on the street? Your own daughter? I am not kicking you out on the street, Chloe. I am putting you in reality. That reality I should have shown you a long time ago. But why? She screamed. Why now? Why all of a sudden? Because yesterday you crossed a line, I replied, standing up too. When you told me, in front of 16 people, that I should pay rent or look for another place to live. When you treated your mother like an inconvenient burden. When you showed that you care more about appearances and luxury than the people who truly love you. I was drunk. I didn't mean... A drunk mind speaks a sober heart, Chloe. Those words were inside you. Maybe you wouldn't say them that way, but you felt them. And the fault for that is mine. I turned you into this by making everything easy for you. By hiding the real price of achievements. Chloe sank into the armchair, her face in her hands, her body shaking with sobs. Part of me, that maternal part that still couldn't completely disconnect, wanted to run to her, hug her, tell her everything was okay, that I forgave her, that we could forget it all. But the wiser part of me, the one that had finally awakened, knew that hugging her now would be committing the same mistake again. True love sometimes needs to keep its distance, so the lesson is learned. How much money do you have, Mom? Chloe asked suddenly, lifting her red, swollen face. How much? To be able to do this to me? To be able to have bought this apartment in cash? To be able to pay for all this for 5 years? I hesitated, but then decided she deserved to know the whole truth. I took the report Diane had prepared and placed it on the table. Read it. She took the document with trembling hands. I watched as her eyes scanned the pages, her expression changing from confusion to shock to something that looked like terror. 20 million? She whispered. You have $20 million? Approximately. It depends on market fluctuation. But yes, around there. How? You were a secretary. Dad sold hardware. How? I sat down again, feeling the weight of years of untold history. I built it, Chloe. Brick by brick, contract by contract, smart decision after smart decision. I opened a consulting firm when you were 7. I worked 16 hours a day. I sold that company for millions when you were 18. I invested well. I bought real estate in the right places, at the right time. I learned about stocks, about funds, about how to make money work for me. And you never told me? All these years, I did not tell you because I wanted you to build your own story. I did not want you to grow up like those rich, spoiled girls who never value anything because everything was always easy. But I made an even worse mistake. I gave you all the benefits of wealth without the knowledge of it. I made you think you were achieving everything alone, when in reality, I was holding your hand the whole time, invisible. Chloe was silent for a long moment, looking at the report. So, when I posted on Instagram about my achievements, about my incredible apartment, about my successful life, was it all a lie? It was not exactly a lie. It was an illusion I created for you and that you embraced. Why didn't you teach me? Why didn't you sit down with me and explain money, business, how you did all this? Because I thought I was protecting you, I replied, feeling tears finally burning my eyes. But I was wrong, Chloe. I was so wrong. Protection in excess becomes a prison, and I locked you in a bubble of fake achievements. Brad, the boyfriend, appeared in the bedroom doorway, clearly just waking up. What is going on here? Why is there so much yelling? Chloe looked at him, then at me, then back at the report in her hands. It turns out my whole life is a lie, Brad. This apartment is my mom's. The SUV is my mom's. Even the money I thought I earned. Half comes from my mom. Brad blinked, confused. What? I don't understand. My mom has $20 million and never told me. And now she is taking everything away because yesterday I said she should pay rent. 20 million? Brad looked at me as if seeing me for the first time. Of course, because for men like him, people only have value when there is money involved. Mrs. Sterling, I didn't know you. It does not matter what you knew or didn't know, Brad, I interrupted. My daughter has 30 days to vacate this property. I suggest you help her find an apartment more suited to your real combined budget. But you can't do that. She is your daughter. Yes, I can, and I am. Exactly because she is my daughter. Because I love her truly, not in the fake, enabling way I loved her until yesterday. I stood up, smoothing my pants. The documents stay here with you, Chloe. If you have any legal questions, you can call Catherine Pierce. Her number is there in the footer. The keys to the SUV can be left with the doorman. I will pick them up on Monday. Mom, wait! Chloe stood up, reaching out a hand as if to touch me, but then let it drop. Can't we talk about this? Find a solution? The solution is for you to grow up, Chloe. It is for you to learn the real value of things. It is for you to understand that no one owes you anything just because you exist. Dignity, comfort, luxury, all that is earned, not given. But I don't know how to do that, she admitted, and for the first time, I saw real vulnerability in her eyes. I don't know how to live without all this. Then it is time to learn. Your salary of $3,000 is enough to rent a one-bedroom apartment in a cheaper neighborhood. It is enough to buy food, pay basic bills. There won't be luxuries, Chloe. There won't be fancy restaurants every weekend. There won't be a new designer handbag every month. But there will be dignity. There will be honesty. There will be real growth. I walked toward the door. Before leaving, I turned one last time. I love you, Chloe. I love you more than you can understand right now. And it is out of love that I am doing this. Because true love doesn't enable, it empowers. And I spent 5 years disabling you. It is time to correct my mistake. When will I see you again? She asked with a broken voice. When you have matured enough to understand why I had to do this. When you can look at me and see not the mother who betrayed you, but the mother who loved you enough to let you grow. I closed the door behind me and walked to the elevator. My legs were shaking. My heart beat out of rhythm. But my mind was at peace. It was the strange peace of someone who did the right thing in the hardest way possible. On the ride back to Brooklyn, I cried. I cried for everything that had been lost. For all the years I wasted creating an illusion. For having taken so long to find the courage to do what I should have done from the beginning. But amidst the tears, there was also relief. Relief at finally having lifted that weight off my shoulders. Relief at returning to being Margaret Sterling completely, without needing to pretend to be small so my daughter would feel big. The next 30 days were the hardest of my life. Chloe called me 17 times in the first 3 days. She left messages crying, begging, negotiating. Mom, at least give me more time. Mom, I can pay $500 rent. Do you accept? Mom, please, I am desperate. I didn't answer a single call. Every ring of the phone was a knife in my heart, but I knew that answering would be weakening. It would be returning to the pattern of making everything easy for her. In the second week, she tried another strategy. Family members began calling me. My cousin Susan. "Margaret, don't you think you are exaggerating? The girl is suffering. My brother Robert, she is your only daughter. Are you really going to do this to her?" To each one, I responded the same thing. I am doing this because she is my daughter, because I love her enough to teach her to grow up for real. In the third week, Chloe's lawyer sent me a formal letter contesting the eviction notice. Catherine replied with all the legal documents, proving that the occupancy agreement was valid and that I had every right to terminate it. The lawyer backed off. On the 28th day, at 4:23 p.m., my cell phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me accept the call. "Hello, Mrs. Sterling?" It was a young female voice, trembling. "My name is Jessica. I am a co-worker of Chloe's. She asked me to call you." My heart raced. Did something happen to her? No. She is fine, physically at least. But, Mrs. Sterling, I have never seen someone so lost. She spent the last week sleeping on the couch at my place because she couldn't find an apartment in time. She cries every night. Does she? "Jessica," I interrupted gently, "I know you are trying to help your friend. But this is between my daughter and me." I know, but she isn't eating well. She lost almost 10 pounds. She seems broken." I closed my eyes, feeling the familiar pain of maternal guilt trying to make me back down. And yet, she didn't call me asking for real help. She didn't try to talk to me with an open heart. She just had you call to awaken my pity. Silence on the other end. Then quietly, "You are right. Sorry to bother you." On the 30th day, Chloe returned the apartment keys to the doorman. Along with the keys, an envelope addressed to me. I asked Mr. Henry to mail it to me. When it arrived, 2 days later, I opened it with trembling hands. Inside, a handwritten letter on 3 pages. "Mom, I don't even know how to start this letter. I spent 30 days trying to understand why you did this to me. I spent 30 days hating you, cursing you, feeling betrayed, but I also spent 30 days truly living for the first time in my life. I found an apartment in Astoria, 1 bedroom, 400 square feet, $1,500 rent. I took the subway for the first time in years to get to work. I cooked my own rice and eggs. I did my own laundry. All those things I never needed to do because there was always someone, you, making it easy. And you know what I discovered? I discovered that I have no idea how to live. I discovered that all those posts on Instagram about achievement and independence were a lie. I discovered that I was a spoiled 32-year-old girl pretending to be a successful woman. I am still angry with you, but I am also starting to understand. You didn't do this out of cruelty. You did it because you love me, and because I had become someone you no longer recognized, someone I myself don't recognize. Brad broke up with me. He said he couldn't stay with someone who fell so far in life. You know what I felt? Relief. Because finally, I saw that he never truly loved me. He loved my apartment, my SUV, my appearance of success. Mom, I need time. I need to learn to be a real person. I need to build something for myself, without your help, without your millions, without your facilities. I need to prove to myself, not to you, to me, that I am capable. So do not look for me yet. Do not help me yet. I know you will want to, because you are my mother, and you love me. But please, give me this gift, the gift of letting me fall, get up, and walk alone. One day, when I have something real to show you, something I built with my own hands, I will come back, and I hope you will still want to receive me. I love you, Mom. It took me 30 hellish days to manage to write this without feeling rage, but I love you, and I am starting to understand that everything you did was out of love. Chloe. I finished reading with my face wet with tears. They were not tears of sadness, but of hope. My daughter was growing, painfully, with difficulty, but she was growing. 18 months passed. 18 months without seeing Chloe, without speaking to her, respecting her request for space to grow. They were the longest 18 months of my life. In that time, I went back to living fully. I resumed hobbies I had abandoned. Painting classes, a book club, traveling. I made true friendships with women who saw me as Margaret, not as Chloe's mother. I rediscovered pieces of myself I had lost in the process of trying to be the perfect mother. And then, on a rainy Thursday in September, my cell phone rang. Known number. Chloe. I answered with my heart racing. Hello? Mom? Her voice was different. More mature, firmer. Would you have some free time on Saturday? I would like to show you something. We met at a small coffee shop in Brooklyn. When Chloe walked in, I almost didn't recognize her. She had cut her hair in a simpler style, wore jeans and a basic blouse, nothing designer in sight. She was thinner, but in a healthy way. Her eyes had a clarity I hadn't seen in years. Hi, Mom, she smiled, and it was a genuine smile. Hello, my daughter. We hugged. It was a long, tight hug, wet with tears from both of us. We sat down. Chloe ordered a simple black coffee, none of the expensive cappuccinos from before, and then she began to speak. I got a promotion. I am now a coordinator at the agency. I make $65,000 a year. I managed to rent a better apartment, 1 bedroom in a decent part of Queens. I am taking the subway to work and saving $500 a month. I opened a savings account. Chloe, that is wonderful. Wait, there is more. She took a folder from her bag. I put together a project, a digital marketing consulting project for small businesses, things they can afford. No big corporations. No pretension. Just honest work helping real people. She opened the folder and showed me. The business plan was well structured, realistic, based on research. I learned from you, she said softly. I researched your trajectory. I read about your old company, and I understood that you built everything taking one step at a time. No shortcuts, no easy way out, and you want to do the same. I do. But with a difference. I want you to be my mentor, not my financier, not my savior, just my teacher. Teach me, Mom. Teach me everything you know about business, about investing, about building something real. I held her hand across the table. It would be an honor. We cried again. But they were tears of healing, of restarting, of a love that had finally found its balance between giving and teaching, between enabling and empowering. Mom, Chloe said before we left, thank you for having the courage to let me fall. It was the greatest proof of love anyone has ever given me. Today, 3 years after that terrible Christmas, Chloe has her own consolidated company. She rents a comfortable apartment that fits perfectly in her budget. She drives a Honda she bought with her own money. She has a credit card with a $5,000 limit that she controls rigorously. And, most importantly, she has real dignity, true achievements, a sense of self-worth that does not depend on appearances or handouts. We have dinner together every Friday. We talk about business, about life, about the mistakes we made, and the lessons we learned. Our relationship has never been so honest, so true, so strong. Sometimes she thanks me. You saved me, Mom. You saved me from becoming an empty person. And I always answer the same thing. No, my daughter. I just had the courage to stop drowning you with ease. You were the one who had the courage to learn to swim. True love does not enable. It teaches. It does not carry. It empowers. And sometimes the greatest gesture of love is having the courage to let those we love fall so they can learn to get up on their own. Now, if you like this story, click subscribe and tell me in the comments which part left you with your mouth open. Oh, and don't forget to become a member to have access to exclusive videos that I don't publish here. See you there.